Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Chronicles of Executive Presence. We are in our second fireside chat, and today I have with me Mr. Ajay Tandon. Mr. Ajay Tandon has 35 years of rich experience in executive and non-executive roles and is on the board of 18 companies. Senior management roles with Tata Auto Corp, 11 years, General Motors for 6 years, Godrej and Boyens, 16 years with a short stint in General Electric joint venture for 8 years. Currently, he's an advisor in Hamilton and Company and an independent director, a mentor, and a coach who's ensuring that he creates more leaders of tomorrow. I would like to welcome Mr. Ajay Tandon for in Chronicles of Executive Presence. Welcome to the episode, sir.
Hi, Nandita. Thank you for having me on your show.
Pleasure is mine. So I'll skip straight to the first question. With your varied experience in Indian multinationals and multinationals outside, what according to you has been the top three attributes of a leader?
So, having worked in two global multinationals, that is General Motors and General Electric, and
Sure.
working in two Indian multinationals, uh, that is the Tatas and Godrej, what I have seen is that successful leaders have four important attributes.
Okay.
First, they are able to identify the opportunities based
Mm-hmm.
on economic trends, uh, customer or consumer insights, technology trends. And having
Okay.
identified that opportunity, they are able to articulate their vision.
Okay.
Secondly, they're able to break down that opportunity into actions and
Okay.
coach people on those actions. The third
Okay.
one is they're able to respond with speed to the ever changing
Okay.
VUCA world.
Hmm.
And when they respond to the changing world, they are able to not only tweak the solutions, they sometimes
Mm-hmm.
even tweak the goal to maximize the opportunity.
Okay.
And the fourth one is they influence and drive change through
Mm-hmm.
integrity, passion, hard work, discipline, and empathy. So, in short, they know how to identify opportunities and articulate the vision. They know how to break that opportunity into action plan and coach people. And
Okay.
thirdly, they are able to tweak their solutions and the goals with the changing world. And fourthly, they are able to manage change.
Beautifully said. So a leader is somebody who can one find opportunities, has a vision, break it down, break it into action points for his team, and also tweak solutions. So being steadfast, being very regimented or very in their way of working doesn't work. So change is the name of the game, like you said. They're able to not only change themselves but also change the goal at times. That was very interesting piece for me personally. And also, you said they're able to communicate that. I think one of the key components that comes out for leaders is communication. So, in your experience of, like you said, working in Indian multinationals and foreign multinationals, and all our names that we've taken now are organizations known to create leaders both in India and outside. Have you ever seen a change in the way leadership is perceived, or leadership in the way the leaders behave or work in both these areas, or the East and the West, as they call it? Yeah.
So, leadership is influenced by economic and cultural conditions.
Okay.
As leaders, we need to
Mm-hmm.
think globally but act locally.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
they call it globalization of business. And it is for
Yeah.
this important reasons,
Mm-hmm.
building a leadership pipeline is very essential
Okay.
for all the global organizations. But it is
Mm-hmm.
not an easy task.
True.
Uh, because they have to adapt
Mm.
to local conditions as they get posted around the globe.
Okay.
So successful leaders in developed countries respond differently than developing countries. Uh, Let
Okay.
me say, emerging economies like India or China, uh, we are more biased towards, the operational execution part, uh,
Okay.
more focused on hands-on management, process focus, managing individual performance,
Mm-hmm.
and rightly so. These are fast-growing countries, growing very rapidly, and you
True.
need to be to the market quickly and effectively. So,
True.
more top-down type of an approach with a focus on change management. But if you go to the Nordic countries, or you go to the Benelux type of countries, where
Mm-hmm.
typically the organizations are by and large global, and they are pretty old organizations, maybe 100 years plus type of organization. The focus is more on planning, strategy, communication, and the leader there
Mm-hmm.
is a change ambassador rather than a change manager. You know, so
Beautiful.
he's focusing on the vision, mission, long-term thinking. Uh, Innovation thrives there, and there's a focus on collective management.
Okay.
And if you go to countries like UK or US, it's more of a hybrid model. Uh, there is a drive for a result like in India, and there's a push orientation to change management. Now, coming to the cultural bit of it,
Hmm.
if you look at India and many countries in the eastern part of the world, the style is more paternalistic. Leaders get
True.
involved in both personal as well as professional
Hmm.
development. The
Okay.
leadership is more of benevolent type. They
Hmm.
expect loyalty and obedience as a mark for respect
Yes.
and gratitude.
Okay.
And when you go to the West, it is
Hmm.
more individualistic, more transactional. You bring in the skill sets, we pay you. Uh,
Okay.
yes, we'll be sensitive towards your personal needs, but
Hmm.
we'll not focus more than that. We'll not get too involved. So that is the thought process.
Okay.
So you can see there is a clear difference between, from the cultural side as well as economic side. Moment you start doing management in different parts of the world, and to build these global pipeline, invariably a manager is sent on stretch assignments at different parts of the
Yes.
world, and that is when he begins to experience this. And if he is successful, then he begins to head the global roles more effectively.
Beautiful. So just feedback that has come in. If you could sit a little closer to the mic, I think your voice is getting lost during transmission a little. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, very valid. I really like the way you said economy plays a role, the development of the economy plays a role, the tenure of the organization and the culture of the place also plays an imperative role in how leaders act. And I think that is why most large organizations do put leaders in multiple roles and multiple postings across the geography so that they can understand and become truly global leaders. So it's a very beautiful and valid point. And the way you brought out the three variables has been quite interesting. Recently, I was reading in a survey done by Blanchard and Company that empathy is one of the greatest skills that a leader of today should have, and that what constitutes executive presence, or leadership presence. So, I would like to get your views on this topic to say what, according to you, is leadership presence.
Uh, so, invariably, when you ask people to identify leaders who have executive presence, 7 out of 10 will point out, okay, this leader has executive presence. Uh,
Yeah.
but if you ask them the next question, can you define executive presence? Uh, Maybe 7 out of 10 will not be able to define it. So
Very true.
executive presence is something which is easy to spot, but people find it difficult to define. So
Very
let me
true.
help define it in a very
Sure.
simplistic manner.
Sure.
The way I look at executive presence is, it's a combination of one's mindset, how
Okay.
one appears, how
Mm-hmm.
one communicates, and how one
Okay.
acts. So it's like inside
Okay.
out. You keep going. Okay.
Beautiful.
And people who are able to manage these four aspects tend to have a stronger executive presence. Now, let me talk a little bit on each one of these factors.
Sure,
Uh,
please. Yeah.
uh, let's take mindset. Uh, it is
Mm-hmm.
the strategic insight uh, which a leader
Mm-hmm.
has, and we talked about it in
Yeah.
the earlier question. Is he able to
Mm-hmm.
inspire people and with a very articulated vision? Is he authentic? Is he positive? Is he self-aware? Is he confident? Does he have strong values, beliefs? So it's how his mind is positioned.
Very
Secondly,
nice.
is how he comes across, on the first look. Uh, you know,
Okay.
does he make a good impression?
Okay.
Does he dress or come across in a way which is culturally appropriate? You know,
Very nice.
um,
Okay.
and
Ah,
he's not a distraction. He does not look totally out of place in the context of the setting. Then coming to the communication part, does he
mhm.
have strong written and oral communication abilities? Can he speak, and have a very good command on one-to-one conversation and a virtual conversation where he's speaking to hundreds of people?
Mm-hmm.
Is he an excellent listener? you know
Okay.
uh, does he ask the right questions? Uh,
Okay.
uh, is he able to explore ideas which people come up with, and try to expand those ideas and then try to build on those ideas? Does he have a proper body language? His tone of voice, uh, empathy towards the other person, exactly what you said. All this, if you put it all together, it's the communication part of it. Then you
True.
come to the actions.
Hmm.
uh, does he operate effectively under stress? uh,
Mm-hmm.
is he tolerant of the VUCA world? uh,
Okay.
does he have control over his anger? Is he patient? Is he well prepared? Okay. Uh, does he
Yeah.
respond but not react? Uh, uh,
Wow.
and is he adaptable? Is he
Mm-hmm.
flexible? And we again talked about it when we were talking about the earlier question, where is he flexible and moving around with his solution, and sometimes even with his goal?
Very nice. Yeah.
Is he able to create a network? Is he politically savvy? All that, if you encompass, comes out in action. uh, you know so
Okay.
we as
Ah,
professionals are being evaluated all the time
very true. Very
at
true.
each. I remember when I was just starting my career. uh,
Mm-hmm.
no one taught me this, but I was careful about it. Many years later,
Sure.
10, 15 years later, some of the senior management people came to me and said, Ajay, we knew you will succeed. I said, how did you know I will
Okay.
succeed? We were watching you. I said, so you had so much time to watch a person like me at the lowest level? So the fact is,
Okay.
people
Ah,
observe you, and you have to be
very true.
very, very careful with your
Hmm.
mindset, your appearance, your communication ability, and your actions. And all the stakeholders, okay, get impacted by your executive presence, like the employees. Uh,
Very true.
they decide whether this is the leader we want to follow or we should not follow him.
True.
Your colleagues, your customers, your suppliers uh, are
Mm-hmm.
evaluating you and saying, is this guy capable and trustworthy?
Hmm. Yeah.
The seniors and the owners of companies, they say, does he have the potential to deliver what we have in mind? Uh, so,
Mm-hmm.
uh, so executive presence is so important. And if you think of a very simplistic way of the mindset, how a person appears, how he communicates, what action he takes, and you are very careful and cultivate this, you will have a very, very positive impact on all the stakeholders.
So, I think you covered right from the micro to the macro, from the inside to the outside. And if I put it in a nutshell, okay, the four aspects as you spoke about in terms of mindset, appearance, communication, and action. I think after listening to you, I believe all leaders need to be just Superman. So they need to have everything within them. You miss it once and you've lost it. And you're very true, because you don't even realize how little things that you're doing and not doing actually impacts people all the time, and they are observing you and they form opinions about you as both as leaders, and would they like to follow you, or are you a capable leader to take on leadership positions in organizations, stakeholders. Very nicely said, Mr. Tandon. I really like the way you just put it all in a nutshell. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Nandita, since we have been discussing this entire executive presence in such a vivid
Sure.
manner,
Sure,
may
sir.
I ask what has been your experience on executive presence as a consultant, as a coach? I'm sure you have interacted with hundreds and thousands of people, and
Okay.
I would like to hear your takeaways.
Okay, so let me start. When I initially spoke about executive presence 9 years back, so a lot you said, a lot of people know it needs to be there, but they don't know what it is. So we were typically going by the Western definitions and philosophies of leadership presence at that time. And when I spoke to organizations, they used to come back and say, my leader doesn't have it in him to become the next level, but what was missing, they were not able to point out. So what you said is very true. You're not able to identify the smaller gaps, because a lot of intangible things also that we have in executive presence. Not everything is tangible. So over the years, what I've seen in the Indian market as a consultant is companies have started opening up to the concept of executive presence, and also realizing that it is trainable and coachable. So they are willing to, get consultants on board, coaches on board, to help their leaders project a more global image. Like if I sum up what you said some time back, that it's very culturally dependent. So a leader may be a brilliant leader within India, but when he's moved to an overseas posting, to check out, to give him a bigger role or a meatier role, at times it misses out, because they're not seen as leaders in other countries, maybe because of cultural expectations from other parts of the world, or the way our own upbringing has been done. We don't give so much value to certain attributes. So that kind of coaching training is what I've seen happen, and I've seen some of the people that I've coached over the years have moved up, and gives a lot of pleasure to see that it is basically what I feel most people have it within them. It's just that we as consultants and coaches just chisel the whole thing and make them aware that, hey, this matters and this is what you're working on. And that's been my experience. But I've seen a lot of Indian organizations, interestingly, have started opening up to the concept of executive presence. That's been my experience, sir.
Very insightful.
Thank you. Okay, so we have people who work with you and okay, awesome. Okay, so we've been talking about executive presence, and I will take over 3.5 decades of experience of yours right now here, and I'm going to ask you a question. You've seen leaders 35 years back. You're seeing leaders today. And industry has moved from industry 1.0 to industry 5.0, as it's called today. What are some of the things that you think are not so prevalent, or some of the younger leaders need to be so very aware of, which they are somewhere unconsciously, subconsciously missing out for them to be great leaders of tomorrow?
Yeah. So, I think if all of us just think through our careers, there have been stages in our life where we have felt, we had all the merit and the job went to someone else.
Yes.
Yeah.
After appraisal in particular.
Yes. So we all had that feeling, and we
True.
felt that the world was little biased. They did not, treat us fairly. But the fact is that someone else, had the merit and the executive presence. So, in my view, the missing link between merit and executive and success is the executive presence.
Wow. So for all those leaders listening in there, if you need to really grow and become successful in the corporate world, executive presence is something that you need to know, because I think competencies, your capabilities is something which is a baseline which is taken. So everybody has it at your level. So what is that extra niche that you need to have? So my last question to you before we go deeper into some of the questions that I've asked today in the panel discussion, along with Mr. Joginder Singh and Aditi Sharma, who will be joining us in the next Fireside, is what is your one advice to leave a legacy behind for people?
What I would suggest is become very self-aware about your executive presence. Now, executive presence is something which is most admired. We admire people who have executive presence, but we do not take enough efforts to develop our own executive presence. And probably it's because we don't understand it fully. We don't know how to take it forward. All those things could be the result why we do not spend enough time developing. So we need to understand the gaps in our executive presence, take corrective actions.
Beautiful.
The good news, like you rightly said, I think somewhere in the conversation, is that this is a skill which can be learned.
Very true.
It is not a skill which cannot be learned. It can be learned, subject to your focusing and understanding where the gaps are. And every aspiring leader needs to ensure that it is properly cultivated to maximize their personal and professional potential.
Wow. That was awesome. I think, like Mr. Sinha has also said in the comments, that I think you're known to simplify things. I think the way you put everything in a nutshell, broke down to the minutest of details about talking about leadership and executive presence with has given a lot of insights to all the people who are listening in. And I'm sure they will have a lot of questions. What does this mean? How do we go deeper? So for all those of you who are listening in, remember that on 5th of December, we will go deeper into these questions, challenge some of the thought processes that these leaders have, and put them in a game of war, if I'm putting it extremely crudely, to ensure that we thrash out what executive presence means in India. We would also try to decode the mystery word of executive presence, not only from Mr. Tandon's perspective, but from leaders across industries, across geographies, across industries, across various, in terms of various types of industries, if I may say. So if you think you have a leader with you who has inspired you and you would like us to interview, do share those names of those leaders, and we will try our best to get them in for you. And thank you so much for coming into the conversation, the fireside chat, as we call it. And we are all prepared. And I'm ready with my second set of questions for you for the panel discussion. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you, Nandita. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. And if you have more questions, please do write into us. And don't forget to log in on 5th of December to listen to the panel discussion. Thank you and have a good evening ahead.